Algebra 1, welcome back, guys. We are in section 4. Okay, we are learning another different style of the slope-intercept form. So we had slope-intercept, and then we moved on and we did point-slope, and now we're moving on from there, and we are doing what's called just the straight standard form. Okay, and they're basically all variations of each other. Okay, so you guys remember back in the last video for section 3 where I was telling you that, hey, this is a new form, but really it stems off of slope-intercept. Standard form is even closer to slope-intercept, and you're going to see us using a lot of that and then converting it right into standard, which is very easy. Okay, so you're going to see that throughout this video. So let's jump into the notes that we got right here. We got standard form equation. One quick pause. You guys know what I highlight, that's like the big important stuff. You should read it all, but if you just want to get right to the meat of it, then that's going to be look right at the highlighted stuff. And, you know, everything that's stemming off of that standard form equation that you're seeing right there on the screen, that's just me breaking it apart, okay, kind of dissecting it for you. So there you go. You got the standard form, ax plus by equals c. And we're looking at the a is the coefficient of x. Okay, x is just the straight variable. And then the b is the coefficient of y. And again, y is just that variable. And then you have c, that's the constant. Okay, so no variable with c. And when we are plugging in values, like let's say we're given a point and you have to plug in a point, let's move into our next point. Plug in a point, moving to our next point. There you go. So anyway, we're down right here now. Okay, so if you are given slope and a point, then now you have x and y. Okay, you have x and y that immediately should then clue you into those x and y. Okay, and the first thing you're going to want to do here is you are solving for b. Okay. But you're going to have this in the slope-intercept form. All right, so this is the whole thing, what I was talking about at the beginning, where you're actually going to put it into slope-intercept and then rearrange it, and then it's going to be moved into standard form. Okay, so you guys have actually done the opposite of this already. You've been given equations that were already in standard form, and then the book or myself asked you, okay, convert this into slope-intercept. So you've done this, all right? This section should actually be pretty easy because you've done slope-intercept, or actually you've done standard to slope-intercept. Now you're going to do slope-intercept to standard. All right, there we go. So let's move into this part right here, talking about equivalent equations. Just kind of a fancy word there, basically saying, hey, whatever the book gives you or whatever I give you, if you were to multiply the entire equation by an easy number, usually in this case, stick to 2 or 3, everything you get from that is an equivalent equation. In other words, it's actually going to produce the same graph as the original equation that the book gave you or that I gave you. It is important to notice you can't pick the number 1, guys, because if you multiply anything by 1, it becomes itself. That's called the multiplicative identity property. All right, its identity won't change at all. All right, and then the last piece that we need to talk about, I feel like you've already learned this part right here, where if you just have a straight y equals a number, that's just a horizontal line. And if you have x equals a number, that's just a vertical line. Now what this section will do is they're going to give you a point. All right, so your x comma y, and then you're just going to pull out the x and say x equals, and then there's the number that they gave you. Pull out the y, y equals. It's very easy. And this is one of those things where students overthink it. They'll literally say, it's too easy. I must have done something wrong. And those problems, trust me, are that easy. All right, so let's jump into some example problems. Okay, first one right here. Write 2 equations in standard form that are equivalent, meaning they are the same, to the given equation. So all we're going to do right here is let's take the original given equation and let's start by multiplying everything in there by 2. And that's going to give us negative 4x plus 8y equals negative 10. Boom. That is one equivalent equation. All right. Now let's go ahead and erase that number. And now let's multiply it by 3. That's going to give us another equivalent equation. So then that's going to give us negative 6x plus 12y equals a negative 15. That's another equivalent equation. If you're asking yourself, can't there be a ton of correct answers here? Yes, there can be a lot of correct answers here. But if you could, so that we're all being consistent, just go ahead and use the number 2 and use the number 3. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're watching this video, you should, because they're all Ed puzzles, by the way, you're going to reference that in class, and I will know for sure, yep, you watched the video. Okay, so a little trick right there. Next example problem. Here we go. Write an equation in standard form. That's the whole purpose of the section. And if it passes through the given point and has a slope of m, so that's number 2. They give us a point, they give us the slope. And then the other style is, what if they just give you 2 points? Okay, well, that means they didn't give us the slope. That's number 3 right there. So we're going to have to solve for the slope first in number 3, and then we can proceed. But let's do number 2, because this one will kind of set us up for the format of how to do number 3. All right. So what you have to do is start with slope-intercept, then work into standard. So here's your x, here's your y. There, of course, is your m. So you got a negative 1 equals 3 multiplied by your x value plus b. So step 1 is plug in the values that are given. Now we have to solve for b. So you get a negative 1 equals 12 plus b. Subtract both sides by 12, and you're going to get a negative 13 equals b. Now let's rewrite the slope-intercept equation, but this time we're going to use x, y, but we're going to substitute in the b value because now we know that. So it's y equals 3x minus 13. Now this is the slope-intercept form, but we want to convert this to standard. So all we have to do here, guys, is swap places with the y and that negative 13. And if you swap places, then you're going to be looking at 13 equals 3x minus y. And that right there is standard form. Standard form is x and y together. That's really the only difference between standard form and slope-intercept. All right, let's do number 3, where step 1 is actually solving for the slope. So don't forget, we've done this so many times. And yes, I do keep writing all those x1, y1, x2, y2, because you have to know it. So let's use the slope equation here. M equals, we got negative 9 minus a negative 1 divided by a negative 6 minus 0. So we know we're actually going to have a little bit of an add the opposite. So that's really negative 9 plus 1, which is going to give you a negative 8 over a negative 6, which a negative over a negative is going to become a positive. So now we need to reduce that. And that's going to get us down to positive 4 over 3. All right. So that's our slope, 4 over 3. And then what I'm going to do is just use the first point. All right, so be consistent. Use the first point. That's 0 and negative 1. Plug that in for x and y. Plug in 4/3 for m, and let's solve for b. So we have negative 1 equals 4/3 times 0 plus b. So negative 1 equals 4/3 times 0 is 0. So that is just negative 1 equals b. All right, excellent. So now rewrite the equation in slope-intercept. Y equals 4/3 x minus 1. And now let's swap places here. All right, and that's going to give us 1 equals 4/3 x minus y. And there we go. All right, so that's going to be our standard form. If they gave you 2 points, solve for slope. Once you have slope, use the first point for your x and y. You have m, then solve for b. After you get b, put it back into slope-intercept, and then convert it to standard. All right. And guys, we got our last example problem, and I'm going to show you what I meant by it. This is actually as easy as it sounds. Don't overthink this. So it says write equations of the horizontal vertical lines that pass through the given point. Simply enough, if this is your x, if this is your y, x equals -1. Y equals 3. All right, if you were to graph these equations, they would pass through that given point of -1 and then a +3. Okay, so that's it. I mean, that's what I'm talking about when it comes to it. Literally is that easy for the last part. All right, we like those types of problems. Okay, guys, that's all I got for you. So that covers everything that you need out of section 4, linear equations in standard form. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one.